So we just read the last sentence. Mortality bears ill the Eternal's touch. It fears the pure divine intolerance of that assault of ether and of fire. It murmurs at its sorrowless happiness, almost with hate repels the light it brings. It trembles at its naked power of truth and the might and sweetness of its absolute voice. What is this divine intolerance, you think? Mortality bears the Eternal's touch with much difficulty. Eternal and mortal, they are words that contradict one another. Man is bound to his mortality. Is he in love with his mortality? Does he hate the eternal? Something in him repels the divine. Why is that term, the touch of the divine, described as intolerance? Usually we use the word for someone who can't stand anything other than his own viewpoint or his own opinion. We are intolerant of somebody else. But this is a pure divine intolerance. It is as if when the divine power is at work, nothing else can really stand up against it. There's just that. And this is what man cannot bear, because man is made up of all kinds of different elements and he does not want to get rid of them. Something in him is attached to his lower nature. Something in him is willing to open to the light. Something in him is full of forgetfulness or indifference. He's made of different elements. And in the divine, there is only purity of the divine consciousness, nothing but that. And this is what we cannot stand. And therefore, he calls it an assault. The touch of the divine is like an attack of spirit and of fire. Fire that burns up, fire that illumines, fire that purifies, fire that destroys. Ether is spirit, is not dense. Man is tied to his density, his tamas, his inertia. So this part of our nature, which is not just heavy and dull and impure, but loves this impurity, this ignorance. This is why again and again we reject the divine guidance, help, even when it is given to us from so near. Here we have been given it almost on a daily basis. Even here, we really have not made use of it. We remain the same. It murmurs at its sorrowless happiness. We like our melancholy, our grief. Something in us loves to weep because one of the most attractive features of our ego is self-pity. You feel sorry for yourself. You weep. You don't expect to be understood or loved. Almost with hate repels the light it brings. It's very strong. It trembles at its naked power of truth. You see how we wrap up truth in all kinds of interpretations and coverings, many of them which are convenient for us to accept. We make our own definitions, we make our own wrappings to the truth. That much of it that we can comfortably accept. So this is what keeps us the way we are. And the might and the sweetness, the words seem to be opposed to one another. The might of that love, the power of that love, sweetness. One of the last, of last term that Savitri asks from the divine at the end of the book. She says, "Thy sweetness give to me." She says to the Supreme, "Thy sweetness give to me for earth and men." But do we recognize it? That grace, that love, that compassion, it is constantly sustaining us. We don't want to remember, because then we have to feel grateful. And if you have to feel grateful, you have to forget your little self. And we love our little selves. That's why when that call comes, it's an absolute call. There is no place for any duality, any division. Therefore, what does man do when the divine grace comes down? Inflicting on the heights the abysm's law, it sullies with its mire heaven's messengers. Beings or expressions of the divine who come in the form of guides, of avatars, of sages, we bring them down to our level. We judge them by our standards. To sully is to make dirty. So the heavens representatives are judged by our smallness, by our ignorance, and reduced to the size of our littleness. So you say, who is Krishna? Who is Christ? Why did he behave like this? Why did he do the things he did? Was he not capable of? What is so special about these people? Why could Christ not come out of the cross, except to be crucified? If he is the divine, he need not have died. We put our statements, our judgments, our labels. We do not perceive the divine intention. Why did they do what they did? We have to become them to understand why Mother did, or Sri Aurobindo said, or Krishna lived the way he lived. We have to become them, not impose our opinions, our judgments, which we do nowadays, write big books and tomes and all kinds of, you might say, discussions about these beings whom we did not and still do not understand at all. We cannot understand them. We can never understand them. We have to become them. We have to lose ourselves first, wipe off our littleness completely. So it sullies with its mire heaven's messengers. Its thorns of fallen nature are the defense it turns against the saviour hands of grace. It's a beautiful image. The hands of love, of grace, of compassion, we hurt them with our attacks, like the thorns which are there on the stem of the rose. Before you reach the rose, you have to sometimes be pricked by the thorns. Why was the crown of thorns given to Christ? The sense of mockery, of a kind of a need to reduce these beings we never understood at all. This is the infliction we do. We put the law of our littleness on them. We belong to the abyss. If we really think we are truly human mental beings, I think we should think again. The greater part of our nature is subhuman. Much of us, a big part of our being, is plunged in darkness and does not want to come out. We have capacities to break out. There is an opening, but that requires a continuous effort to come out of our lower nature, which is tapasya, which is sadhana, which we prefer not to do. It demands a great deal of effort. And therefore, it meets the sons of God with death and pain. This is what mortality has done to the gods. And that is why, again and again, the Divine, who is infinitely patient, infinitely compassionate, comes back to this fallen earth, fallen humanity, without expecting anything in return, and yet comes with all his love and all his grace and all the compassion the Eternal is capable of. Is rejected, if not rejected, is simply put down in some kind of formulas of religion, dogma, credo, certain beliefs, and you say, I've done my duty by the Divine, I've said my prayer, I've done my little meditation, so I've become a better person. Fundamentally, I really haven't changed. I was, I am, I still will be for a long time, that little worm that I have inside. Therefore, the lightning comes, the lightning shines in the dark. The Divine Presence, the Divine Grace, the Divine Avatar comes like a flash, like an illumination. The lightning burns up what is impure. The lightning illumines the darkness, but the lightning is short-lived. It comes, it goes. So a glory of lightning traversing the earth scene. Their sun thoughts fading, darkened by ignorant minds. This is what we do. The luminous truths that they come to give us, our minds interpret, explain, give a lot of, you might say, we do a lot of philosophizing about things we have not experienced, which is what probably I'm doing also just now. Their work betrayed. We go against. If the Divine has come to bring the law of light, or of right, or of truth, or of infinity, we are completely tied to the law of darkness, of falsehood, of littleness. We read the other day that poem, The Four Dictators. It's a sonnet by Sri Aurobindo.
The iron dictators. Iron dictators.
Yes, they are the dictators. That is falsehood, death, suffering, inconscience. They rule. They have become the rulers. Not truth, not infinite life, not joy, not consciousness. But then, this is the beauty of Sri Aurobindo. He calls this play of these four forces a mime. It's a tremendous drama. It's a play. It's just a surface play. A play is something you enact. You do it for a while. Who is in the ancient times, in many ancient countries, including ours, or in the ancient Greeks, actors always wore masks. They did not wear their faces. Today, even now, in Kerala, they don't wear their normal faces because they are not themselves, they are somebody else. The Greeks, for them, drama was part of their spiritual life. Always the theatre was near the temple. And they put on masks. Does the divine wear a mask? And that masked aspect is ignorance and death, unconsciousness and suffering. Because there is nothing but Him. So that sonnet says, Thou, only Thou. Nothing else exists, only Thou. But when we look at the world around us, we don't see Him. We see these four perversities. And they rule, they dominate, they seem to have taken over creation. So their work, they have come to bring this truth and joy and life and consciousness. What we live is falsehood and suffering, unconsciousness, and what is it? What's the fourth? Suffering. So these four, that's why he says their work betrayed. Their good to evil turned. In the name of these gods, in the name of these forces, if we look back at the history of mankind, and it is happening even now, most wars are fought in the name of God. This God or that God. My God is the only one. Your God is not God. And this has been the cause of so much destruction, evil, intolerance. We don't know how to be wide, how to see behind the outer aspects. So in the name, that is one of the reasons why Sri Aurobindo has very clearly said the age of religion is dead. If we cling on to these things, we will never move ahead. We're moving backwards because we have put such fixed norms, standards, rules, definitions, credos, dogmas that we are trapped like in a prison. Their work, their good to evil turned, the cross, their payment for the crown they gave. That's why I was referring to Christ. This cross is the symbol of the divine who accepts to plunge into the darkness, accepts to go through the human journey of pain and suffering. Could he have not avoided it? He cured so many, Jesus Christ, from their suffering and their pain, their blindness, and even raised the dead. But if he had come only to escape, he need not have come at all. So he has come with the crown, not the crown of thorns, but the crown of knowledge, the crown of truth. Instead, he was mocked, he was tortured, he was killed. And this is repeatedly the story of all avatars. Only they leave behind a splendid name. They are reduced to a name. We say tomorrow is the battle between darkness and light, between Durga and the Asura. We worship, we celebrate, we make a big expression. But do we really recognize that this is a continuous battle? That battle doesn't take place only 3 days. And then after the 10th day, we sent Durga back to her home. We have sent the gods back to where they came from. And so, in his stotra, Sri Aurobindo said, once we have thee, we shall not cast thee away. We should never cast away the divine.
Is that in the hymns to Durga?
This is in the hymn to Durga, the last. Because it is this, we can't bear the pressure of that presence for too long. We can even our celebrations, we can't celebrate the year long. You have one day which is Christmas, and one day which is this Ashtami, and one day it is this or that. But why one day? Why not a lifetime of that? Why not always live in that state? You don't have to have a special day. Why not make every day a new birth, a new birthday? But we can't take it. The pressure is too much. We break down under the pressure. Therefore, they leave behind a name. A fire has come and touched men's hearts and gone. A few have caught flame and risen to greater life. This is the state of mankind in general. All men are not of the same nature. There is always a hierarchy. There are a few who are a little more open, who have advanced a little more. There are the rest who refuse to advance, who prefer to follow the same conventional way of life. So, a few can and have changed, but so few. After so many centuries of the divine coming down on the earth, helping us, showing us the way, why should we still remain the little beasts that we are? Now, he refers to Savitri. Up to here it is man, mortality, the human being. She is living among these beings, but she is not like them. She is a human being who is not quite human. As Sri Aurobindo has said also about Savitri, about Mother, that Mother was above the human even in childhood. She was a child, but she was not quite only a child. She was aware of it. So, too unlike the world, she came to help and save. Her greatness weighed upon its ignorant breast. Earth was beginning to react against the presence of the divine. The greatness of Savitri, who has come to change, to illumine. And so the darkness knows that my time is up. If she is allowed to grow, if her light is allowed to expand, my time is up. So again and again, they hit back. This is the play of the Asura. Again and again, the darkness will hit back. Here, he will now pick up the thread of the story. How is she being hit back? In the form of suffering. Her greatness weighed upon its ignorant breast, and from its dim chasms welled a dire return. Return is really a you might say, attack, a terrible attack from below, dire, dangerous. Because if the light goes down into the deepest chasms, that is the subconscious, that is the unconscious, there will be no subconscious and unconscious left. And each part of the being is attached to itself. So this is where it is very difficult. We all may try, I'm sure we all do, to, in our inner hearts and minds, to become something a little more open, a little more receptive. But what about the lower nature, the subconscious? The subconscious is very difficult. We have grown out of that. We've grown out of the mud, out of the muck, and we have it inside us. It doesn't want to go. To bring light there is extremely difficult. And this is what is the yoga of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, to bring light down into the lowest part of the being, not only in your heart and soul and mind. To open these parts to the divine is fine, but what about the lowest? The inertia and the rebellious parts in our nature, where there is disbelief, where there is non-acceptance of the divine. It is there. So this is where the revenge comes from. It will hit at Savitri. And from its dim chasms will the dire return, a portion of its sorrow, struggle, fall. To live with grief, to confront death on her road, the mortal's lot became the immortal's share. Savitri had to take part in the mortal's lot. Lot is fate, your destiny. What is your fate? That is why you are mortal. You are tied to death, mortality. Our origin is the immortal. We have lost connection with that origin. So we live, therefore, with a sense of separation. Grief comes because we are separated from the origin. We are not connected with the source from which all light comes. So to live with grief and therefore confront death. This is the story of man. This is what is given to Savitri, who has put on a human body. So here, the pain that she too has to go through. She has come down into this state. It is like being trapped. So he uses the image of being caught in a web, in a fabric, The jinn is really the weaving of the cloth. There are threads that go horizontally and there are those that go vertically. And if a fly is caught inside, then it can't come out. So he's giving that image. We are trapped in this state. Man has an immortal soul. Man has a mortal, dark, unconscious surface nature. And therefore, he can't seem to come out of that state. She also has entered into that world. Thus, trapped in the gin of earthly destinies, awaiting her ordeal's hour abode. She remained, waiting for the hour to strike. She's going to get hit. Because she has accepted this state. Knowingly, that's why. Man unknowingly, she knowingly. But the fate is the same. She has to face the blow when it comes. Outcast from her inborn felicity, because she is born from the Ananda of the Supreme. She is a projection of that force. The creative Ananda is the source of all manifestation. She is the cause of manifestation. She is that Ananda. But she seems to have entered into the world that is the very opposite. Accepting life's obscure terrestrial robe, hiding herself even from those she loved. The Godhead greater by a human fate. This is the greatness of the sacrifice. She does not escape the human suffering and death. She enters into the world of darkness. The others, the greater gods, remain on their heights and they don't accept to get plunged down into the darkness. But the Divine Mother, the Divine Force, has plunged into the inconscient. Out of that inconscient, the force will emerge. But for that, first she has to plunge into the darkness. This is the greater God. By accepting the limits, the fatality of human nature, because unless you have gone through the pain, you cannot really remove the pain. As Narad says about the avatar, how shall he heal the pain he never felt? So if he has come to heal the pain, he has first to feel the pain. In order to feel the pain, he has to become human. So this is the avatar, the divine who becomes human. Out of this sacrifice only man can find the way, because he has come down, become like us, or she has become like us. She has shown the way, so we can walk in her footsteps. So nobody around her knew exactly who she was. Everyone knew she was different, she was beautiful, she was special, she was quiet, but she was the incarnate mother. Nobody knew that. The only thing is, and here is again a flashback, because epics don't start from the beginning of the story. So in the middle of the story, Savitri had been told that on such and such a day, Satyavan will die. 1 year from the day she met Satyavan, he would die. She knew that. No one else knew. She has been counting the days as a human being who has found her beloved. She has been living in his forest hut with him, but knowing that this love and joy that she is sharing with him is slowly slipping away. The days are becoming less and less. But she doesn't show anything. Therefore, here, those Narad had said, this day returning Satyavan must die. Death will not touch her. He doesn't dare. He knows really who she is. Death knows everything. But he will touch the embodied soul who is Satyavan. So, but she has come on earth for Satyavan, for man. A dark foreknowledge separated her from all of whom she was the star and stay. She lived in this hermitage. Everybody turned to her for guidance, stay as support, and help. They knew without really understanding that she was the only thing around they could count, the only being they could count on all the time for guidance, for compassion, for help. But they didn't know exactly who or what she represented. And she did not tell what was the reason why she was living with them. Too great to impart the peril and the pain, in her torn depths she kept the grief to come. See, those who are very, very strong do not share their grief. Because if I share my grief with you, and you are fond of me, you will also start to suffer. That's why the great don't speak of their inmost pain. The weak wail, moan, cry, express their grief, and the whole world feels sorry for them. It's a form of weakness, but we need others' help and compassion and kindness. But if one is very strong, you want to spare them that pain. So she never told anybody for the whole year that she had lived with them what was the end of that year leading up to. Today, that year is ending. That is the point of this first canto. Too great to impart the peril and the pain, in her torn depths, so she kept all the pain in herself, in her human nature. So you can always keep in mind there is a human Savitri, beyond which there is a divine mother. The human Savitri also is a very remarkable, special being. She has to know the pain that man goes through. Only then can she fight the pain. So within her the suffering was there. Nobody knew what she was going through. As one who, watching over men left blind, takes up the load of an unwitting grace, harboring a foe whom with her heart she must feed, unknown her act, unknown the doom she faced, unhelped she must foresee and dread and dare. This confrontation with death is not only for her personal life, yes, also, but not only. It is the challenge made by the mortal embodiment, because she is also a mortal embodiment, against this inevitable law, believed to be inevitable, death. So, she is the one who has to go through these. Like a race that doesn't know where it is moving. The only person who has the eyes is the leader. The leader knows where the dangers are on the road, where there is a ditch, where there is an abysm, where there is a big rock. He has to take the way. So the burden of that difficulty, that guidance, that suffering is borne by the leader. The others quietly follow without knowing how much the leader is taking upon himself or herself. There is a reference to a story, again part of the Christian myth of the pelican. The pelican is a seabird with a very long beak. So according to that myth, the pelican had young ones. Like all little birds, they always keep their mouth open and they want food. Like man also wants demand. That day the pelican went all over all the oceans of the earth and found no fish. But she came back and her little ones were still asking for food. So with her long beak, she cut open her breast, took out her heart and gave it to them to eat. They pounced on it, not realizing the enormity of the sacrifice. This is a kind of a legend to describe how we rarely recognize the enormity of the sacrifice of the divine. We only make demands. Give me this, give me this, give me this. So here, the harboring a foe whom with her heart she must feed is maybe a reference to that story. She's given her life, the mother bird, to the young ones. The young ones don't even realize because they are busy eating the heart. We don't realize how much is given to us, how much suffering the being who has become an embodied mortal goes through. Unhelped, she must foresee and dread and dare. The long foreknown and fatal morn was here. That day has come. The day where at noon Satyavan has to die. Noon, he's using the time of the day also. A new dawn, it's a symbol dawn. Noon is the end of day and the beginning of night, evening, darkness. The cusp between light and darkness. That is the moment when Satyavan is said to die. But nobody knows. The long foreknown and fatal morn was here, bringing a noon that seemed like every noon. See the shallowness of our relationship with the world, with the others. We don't recognize anything. For nature walks upon her mighty way, unheeding when she breaks a soul alive. The cycles of nature, morning and noon, evening and night, continue. The sun rises, then the sun sets, the stars come, the moon comes, it sets. The patterns of nature continue anyway. No, nobody is stopping anything. Nature will continue to flower even though there are bombs bursting everywhere. Leaving her slain behind, she travels on. This is the mechanical journey of the play of energy that is nature. Man only marks and God's all-seeing eyes. To some extent, man realizes that something is changing in the world, in the atmosphere. Among men, there are those who are a little more perceptive. They feel. And even in this moment of a soul's despair, so this is the human Savitri. Today is the day, the long-awaited day where Shiva's death is coming to take Satyavan away. Even in this moment of her soul's despair, in its grim rendezvous with death and fear, no cry broke from her lips, no call for aid. She told the secret of her woe to none. Calm was her face, and courage kept her mute. So he says the Kshatriya in her, she's also a warrior princess. Quietness is a form of enormous strength. Yet only her outward self suffered and strove. So there are two Savitris. The outward Savitri, where it is her rendezvous with death and fear, but only the outward self. Only her outward self suffered and strove. Even her humanity was half divine. Her spirit opened to the spirit in all. Her nature felt all nature as her own. Her nature felt all nature as its own. So she shared the whole load of humanity on herself. I think we could stop here today.